Hello, my dear friends. How are you? Welcome. Thank you for joining me here. I'm Ari Thurger, and as it has been tradition this year on this channel, I'll have a brief take on each major celebration on the neo-pagan calendar. And since we are close to it, today's video is about Beltane. This isn't even the usual Thursday video, but just a little extra one to keep you company, right? Right now, I'm in a huge process of completely changing my life, and it takes time to advance into the into the plan B and plan C, and the future of this channel and my work as a content creator is quite uncertain at this point. So I would like to at least reach one of my main goals as a YouTuber, which is reaching a total of 666 videos for no good goddamn reason whatsoever. So let's dive straight into this very brief take. Beltane is the cross-quarter day of the year, celebrated on the 1st of May. This seasonal festival marks the beginning of summer and is one of the most important and widely celebrated festivals of the modern neo-pagan, let's say, Wiccan wheel of the year. Both historically and today, fire is the main theme of Beltane. Bonfires have been a central part of Beltane celebrations for centuries now, both in celebration and ritual, actually. One such ritual recorded in the Irish sources of the 10th century involves leading cattle through or around lit bonfires amidst incantations in the belief that this would bring protection for the months to come. Protection of the cattle, obviously. And this actually reminds me of some traditions in Western Europe, and I'm quite familiar with that in my own country, particularly around this time of the year and before, during Easter actually, and also of bringing the cattle into the church to be blessed to protect the cattle for the coming months. Part of this cattle also slaughtered after being blessed and consumed, right? It has also been considered lucky to walk around or jump over the bonfire, something we still do nowadays on a couple of yearly celebrations across Western Europe, at least. We do love fire and watching things burn, and why not try our luck and asking our friends to hold our beer while we jump over a huge bonfire? What can possibly go wrong? I tell you what, in the best case scenario, burning your beard. Is this a confession of an incident some time ago? Let's move on with this subject. I'm not here to talk about myself. Bonfires feature prominently in celebrations of Beltane today, and it is still considered lucky to jump over the Beltane bonfire. Another important aspect of Beltane celebration is feasting, with offerings made to the spirits or the gods or both for a fertile and prosperous summer ahead. This is all about the coming summer, the return to longer, bright and warmer days, which with climate change, you're bloody right, future summers will be longer, brighter and hot as fuck. Good gods, it is the only season I passionately dislike, and I'm not looking forward to it. Although Belanos, the Shining One, a sun god of Celtic origin, is often said to be associated with Beltane, as is Bel, the protector and father god. There is little historical evidence for these deities being a part of earlier celebrations. Bel might, in fact, refer to a small gap or passage, while Tane or Tane is Old Irish for fire. For Beltane, windows and doors were decorated with May flowers. These were not mere ornament, however, for those points of entry into the house were believed to need the most protection in a household. The hanging of boughs over doorways was also believed to bring good milk production for cows. For those of you, like me, are from Portugal and grew up surrounded by these old traditions and celebrations, this may indeed sound very familiar to you. The Maias, the Maypole Portuguese celebration. For those who might think the May celebrations around the Maypole are only a Northern European thing. Well, here's the tradition of the Maias in Portugal. The 1st of May is called Maias Day in Portugal, as I said. This is a tradition all over the country, mainly in rural areas, which consists in decorating the windows with yellow genistine, yellow brooms, I think. We call them gesta. Windows and doors are decorated with these flowers during the night in the eve of May the 1st. It is a very old tradition linked to spring and summer and agricultural rituals. On the night of April the 30th to May the 1st, people decorate doors, windows and other places with yellow flowers, and in some places also straw dolls decorated with all sorts of flowers. This is an ancestral tradition to signal the end of winter and to ask for protection and fertility for the land. The houses are decorated at night, full of flowers to be ready for when the day dawned. In this way, the evil spirits stayed away. This tradition is called the Maias or Maius, also known as the flower of May, Flor de Maio, right? And it varies depending on the regions of the country. Most flowers used are genistine, as I said, because they are very abundant flowers at this time of the year and because they are, well, yellow. That's it. So they represent light and life. It is a representation of the sun itself. Placing the flowers all over the house, especially on doorknobs and windows, is to call upon the life-giving powers brought by the new season and to let in prosperity, protection, fertility, and light to clean the house from all the wintry moods and winter spirits. Maia was a rye straw doll around which people danced on the night of April the 30th to the May 1st. It's also a young girl or a child dressed in white with wreaths of flowers who is seated on a throne full of flowers, and people gather around her while they sang and danced. This festivity is, of course, or has its origins on a pagan celebration and was banned several times in Portugal, actually. Even so, it endures, even today. The name Maia means little mother, and the term was traditionally given to a grandmother, a wet nurse, or midwife. This celebration was also held in honor of the goddess of spring or summer. Now, which goddess, that isn't certain, as Portugal alone, or this geographical area where it is Portugal, has over 3,000 pre-Christian and pre-Roman deities. Nevertheless, it is a festivity to celebrate fertility and to ask the earth or the mother goddess to bear fruit in this new agricultural year. As in the pre-Roman calendars, this is the time that signals the beginning of summer and the new agricultural cycle. As I said here many times before, most pre-classic civilizations and cultures, in Europe at least, either divided the year into summer and winter or in 3, spring, summer, and winter. The Maya's traditional celebration is also associated with other ancient pagan customs, which during this period celebrated fertility and abundance in nature. In some Celtic and Celto-Iberian traditions, the first night of May was to celebrate the fertility of the earth, in which people asked nature to give them good fruits throughout the year. And in Ireland, of course, as I said, it was called Beltane night, but as it was said before, it is uncertain, and there are no substantial evidences that truly indicate that this celebration would be dedicated to the god Bel, the protector of life. Beltane might not mean the fire of Bel, after all, but a reference to a small gap or passage and connected to fire somehow, which may or may not be in reference to the old Neolithic rituals which involve the visitation of tombs, passing through the small gap to visit the resting places of the ancestors, of the dead of the community in this time of the year. As such, celebrations from an animistic take, of course, were usually a time of the year to create or maintain relationships with the spirit entities responsible for the fertility of the soils, but also as aiding entities with whom people would maintain all sorts of relationships in order to continue to have, well, a prosperous life. But of course, this last point in relation to the old Neolithic tombs is just my speculation, actually. It just reminds me of that, given a study a few years back when I was working on such archaeological sites and contexts which indeed indicate ritualistic behavior, which require the visitation of the dwelling places of the ancestors of the dead at particular early moments, which may be initiation rituals in this symbolic journey where a person has to literally crouch and crawl to enter the burial mounds, where a light source would have to be brought to illuminate the darkness of the tomb, which at the same time would have to be done at times of depositing new dead of the community within these collective burials. But this is without doubt also a time where rituals of purification by fire were performed. The tradition of jumping a fire to get lucky in love is also attested by in the sources concerning this tradition of the Maias and Beltane as well. So in Portugal, this tradition survived and is practiced on the night of São João, Saint John, when bonfires are lit, and according to popular tradition, one must jump the bonfire to have luck in love. I may one day talk about that fire celebration in here, but I would like to record one for you if I ever get the time and chance. During this day, one of the most well-known traditions in Portugal is the Mastro de Maio, Maypole, which in fact has only started to be used between the 14th and 16th centuries in Central Europe and subsequently in Northern Europe and the rest of Europe. So it's not really something we can trace back to pagan times. In Portugal, a pole mast is erected with colored ribbons tied at the top. The pole symbolizes the world tree, and the ribbons make the connection between heaven and earth. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Of course it does. Also, speaking of flower decorations as symbolic representations of the sun and solar deities, for those of you who have seen my first take on the hand of Irulegi, you may recall the Basque tradition of equilores at their doors, right? Flowers representative of the sun and the sun goddess. Egusquilore, which is the flower of the sun, which is thistle, actually, the flower created by Amalur, the Basque Mother Earth in Basque mythology. But more on that previous video. If I go on, I'm like that Charlie conspiracy meme, because my aim was to solely talk about Beltane, mind you. Speaking of Maypole, it is also at Beltane that we see such familiar traditions as the Maypole dancing, the decorating of May bushes, and the crowning of the May Queen. The veil between worlds is said to be thin at Beltane, quite similar to Samhain, right? Which is also why I've made that previous reference to the visitation of the old tombs, and due to this idea, there are many glimpses into the animistic past of these celebrations, which in time have been taken shape into becoming superstitions in this broken phone passing of information through the generations that at some point becomes distorted. But in such superstitions, we can still have a brief glance into what were once important points in oral traditions within agrarian animistic myths and folk traditions. But this is a time, as I said, full of superstitions because of this time of the year and celebrations and traditions connected to this time of the year, which are linked with May Day and May Eve, which are days full of superstitions because of this. The first dew of Beltane is said to have magical qualities, guaranteeing those who bathe in it a perfect complexion. Sadly, the popularity of Beltane and other traditions across Europe at this time of the year have slowly declined, however, and by the mid-20th century was no longer widely celebrated. There has since been a cultural revival in some areas since the 1990s, the late 20th century, with old and new practices coming together into modern celebrations of Beltane as observed by many pagans today. Well, dear friends, I do hope you found this video to be useful and entertaining. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. Thank you for your support and friendship. As always, thank you for today. Obrigado por hoje. Until we meet again, my dear friends. I'm Mario Theriger, and as it has one such ritual recorded. I can't do it, Captain. I just don't have the power.